what do you think could be the fears as regard electronic voting? Because from what it's looking like, we may not be able to have electronic voting in 2015.
Yeah, I mean, we have to understand the issues. And that's why I said we have to know where we're coming from. In 2011, INEC assured us that they were going to spend so much money on these data machines and that the voters' register would be such that it would not allow multiple registration and all. But we all realized in 2011 that you had multiple names. I mean, you had the same names in many places. You had multiple voting and all. Now, if you don't have your register right, in other words, if people don't have confidence that what you've put in this electronic register, so to say, which is the computer, is right, how do you then ask the people to believe in electronic voting? Because it means that you can really, from your office, manipulate all those votes also. And so we first, you have to get the first step right. It's an ideal, it's good, that's the way it should go. But I'm sorry, we don't even have any faith in the register.
So you mean, you're saying that our system has not even gone to that extent? It's not sophisticated
we're not there yet. Because what is happening today is people can vote many times. You have the same thumbprint in so many places.
But I mean, these days, technology has grown to the extent that computers can actually identify frauds from several miles.
Well, one way or the other, our own computers are not identifying this fraud.
You mean we've not been able to use technology well in our elections?
Clear. If you looked at the tribunals, you see where there's multiple voting and all. You see the register. I mean, INEC keeps saying it's cleaning up the register. That in itself is an acceptance. That register, you have people, the same people on different names, same names, in the register. In other words, when you do electronic voting, how do you guarantee that they will not vote on those names? And that's why I'm saying that we're not there yet until we're sure that we have a register that is good, that is correct. You cannot go into electronic voting.
Interesting. Let me have the thoughts of Olumide Osaze-Uzzi. He's the director of voter education and publicity with INEC, and he's in our Abuja studio standing by to join us. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Olumide. You've heard what the contributors have weighed on this particular issue. And I'd like to know what your concerns are, because as a commission, I know you have concerns as we are going into 2015 election. And of course, as you make presentation to the National Assembly on the electoral law, what are those things on your mind readily, or what are the things that are on top of your agenda as regards the flaws in the Electoral Act?
Thank you very much for having me. First of all, let me just quickly respond to what Mr. Agbaje said. It's not correct when he says that the register is replete with multiple names and several of those names voted several times. There is a process of AFIS that was not done in 2011 because of the shortage of time. But that process between 2011 and 2013 has been undertaken. So as we stand now, there is very little you will find in terms of multiple names appearing on the register. I will request Mr. Agbaje to check with his register in his local government or in the state, in Lagos State. You will not find this. So coming on to your specific question on the request of INEC in the ongoing electoral reform process, there are several of them. The first is this issue of operational independence. You'll recall that in 1998, when INEC was first established by Decree 18, the INEC was not subject to the control or authority or direction of any person or authority. Now, that was amended when it was entrenched into the Constitution. So now it's only in the hiring of its staff, discipline of its staff, that it's not subject, specifically stated that it's not subject to control of any person or authority. So the first submission of the commission was that, look, let us go back to that 1998 position. Just like the Population Commission, which is also established by Section 153 of the Constitution, INEC should not be subject to control or direction from any person or authority, not only in the hiring of its staff, but also in its operational activities. Furthermore, the issue of delimitation, for example. Now, INEC is allowed to demarcate and district constituencies and central districts, subject to the constitutional provisions. But that exercise must be approved by the National Assembly. Well, we felt that this is not a necessarily good thing. It's not amongst the international best practices. We think that INEC should have the sole authority to delimit and demarcate constituencies. There are other issues like the e-voting that was mentioned earlier on. Specifically, the Electoral Act prohibits electronic voting. We don't think that should be the case. That is not to say that we are ready for electronic voting tomorrow. No. But allow INEC the process to commence that process whereby foundations are laid for this. And then we conduct a pilot scheme. And if we fine-tune whatever our results are from that pilot scheme, we can now do a zonal or national rollout of that. Furthermore, the Commission, INEC, has requested that we are at the forefront of the establishment of an Electoral Offences Tribunal and an Electoral Offences Commission. The responsibility of this commission will be to prosecute electoral offenders. We think INEC does not have the capacity or the resources to carry out this duty, which is by law given to it. The essence is it's not an investigative body. We have no power to investigate any electoral offense. That is still left with the police and other security agencies. So we're hamstrung in that regard. So it is better to give it to an agency, an independent agency that has all the powers to arrest, to investigate, and then to prosecute. And this dovetails into the request of these issues of qualification and disqualification of candidates. We believe that if a person has been convicted of an electoral offense, then in our submission in the National Assembly, we declare that such a person should be disqualified, maybe for a period of 10 years or however long that the National Assembly determines, but it should be a disqualifying factor. Furthermore, there's the issue of qualification of candidates or disqualification. Recall that INEC now cannot disqualify any candidate. So if a candidate comes now and he does not meet the requisite qualifications, he is not a Nigerian citizen, he hasn't met the age threshold, then you have a problem. INEC cannot on its own say, no, you cannot be on the ballot. You must have recourse to courts. What it means is that INEC is required by law to take prospective candidates to court to ascertain whether they are qualified or disqualified. We believe that where prima facie, where on the face of it, a person, for example, is not qualified, then INEC should have the discretion to say, look, sorry, we cannot put you on the ballot. But we realize this is a dangerous thing, the way some people perceive it. But INEC should not have the final say. It should be subject to judicial
If I may come in here, Mr. Oluwole, if I may come in here quickly before you go ahead.
Yes.
You mentioned on the issue of electronic voting, and Mr. Agbaje actually pointed out on the issue of the registers that we are even, I mean, you just made some clarification as regards the register. But let me ask you, what does it take for us to have an electronic voting, for example, assuming we want to have an electronic voting for 2015 general elections? What does it take from your commission's point of view, for example, to have an electronic voting? And why can we not have it for 2015?
Well, we have started the process in the sense that we already have the architecture and the foundation. We do have an electronic register. You cannot have electronic voting without an electronic register. There must also, in 2015, we also want to go a step further. There will be card readers. Already we have distributed permanent voters' cards in Anambra, in Ekiti, and Osun. And very soon, probably most likely within this quarter, the Commission will announce dates for a national rollout of the distribution of a permanent voters' card. Now, that permanent voters' card is a smart card. And we have placed orders for electronic readers, card readers, that will ascertain whether your name accredits you, whether you are registered in the particular place where you say you are registered. Electronically, this will be done. Now, these are the very elements and foundations. And the result transmission, we've also gone electronic as well. But we're hamstrung in the sense that the law specifically prohibits us from actually using it to vote. We can use it to accredit, we can use it to compile a register. To an extent, we can use it to transmit results, but we cannot use it to vote. Now, these processes are already being put in place. So with that, the foundations for electronic voting are being laid. But of course, there are other things, even the type of electronic, that's various types of electronic voting. Will it be on net, for example? All these, we must carry out more studies when we're allowed to do that. And then fix that into our existing infrastructure, electronic platforms of accreditation, of the register, of accreditation, and of transmission of results. So the missing component now is the actual voting.